of gray, as colorless as the world had become. Love, work, faith. They were all just hollow words from a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. In the suffocating quiet, a final, desperate thought took root, promising an end to the emptiness. With a decision born of utter hopelessness, Elias let go. The world didn't crash or shatter. It simply faded to black. There was no pain, only a sudden, profound silence that was deeper and more absolute than any he had ever known. It was the sound of a story cut short. He opened his eyes not to darkness, but to an infinite expanse of soft, warm light. A figure stood before him, radiating not blinding majesty, but an immense, gentle presence. It was God. Overwhelmed, Elias collapsed, and the years of pain, anger, and betrayal poured out. "Why?" he choked out between sobs. "Why did you abandon me?" God did not answer with words. Instead, he knelt, and two powerful, comforting arms wrapped around Elias. The embrace was not one of judgment, but of infinite love and understanding. It felt like coming home after a long, brutal war. In that hold, Elias's sobs slowly quieted, replaced by a peace he thought he'd lost forever. "Come," God said, his voice a symphony of all the world's quiet beauties. The scene shifted. They stood, unseen, on a crowded street. God gestured to a young woman, her face etched with worry, clearly exhausted from working multiple jobs. Yet, as she bought a single, cheap flower from a street vendor, a small, determined smile touched her lips. The world changed again. They were in a small, cluttered workshop. An old man, his hands gnarled with arthritis, painstakingly carved a small wooden bird. He had lost his wife of 50 years, but he carved these birds for the children in the local hospital. Each one, a small token of hope he sent out into a world that had taken so much from him. Next, a college campus. A young man in a wheelchair, who had been told he would never walk again, was laughing with a friend. He was studying to be a physical therapist, determined to use his pain to heal others. His struggle was a constant companion, but his spirit was a blazing fire. They stood once more in the gentle light. "Their pain is real, Elias," God said softly, "but they choose to find a reason. They choose to create light in their own darkness. Your pain was real too, but your story was not over." A profound sense of shame and regret washed over Elias as he looked at his own hands. God extended his hand. "Your story is not over, Elias. It is waiting for a new author. Go and help others write theirs." From his palm, a single, brilliant ray of light shot forward, enveloping Elias. It was not a searing heat, but a jolt of pure life, a warmth that stitched the frayed edges of his soul back together. The world rushed back in a dizzying, colorful blur. Elias gasped, taking a deep, shuddering breath. He was back in his room. The gray light from the window now held the distinct promise of a sunrise. He looked at the squalor around him, the dust, the unopened mail, the remnants of a life given up on. With a resolve he hadn't felt in years, he stood up and threw open the window, letting the cool morning air rush in. It was time to start his next chapter. The days that followed were not easy, but they were full. Elias began by volunteering at a shelter, listening to stories that echoed his own past. He found purpose in offering the same comfort he had received. He worked tirelessly, building a small business with integrity and a desire to serve his community. Each success, no matter how small, was a prayer of thanks. Years later, Elias was a success by any measure, wealthy, respected, and surrounded by a loving family. But his true treasure was the hope he now shared freely. He started a foundation, a beacon for those lost in the same darkness he had once known. He never forgot his own unfinished chapter, and he dedicated his life to helping others find the strength to write their next page, reminding them that with faith, no story ever truly has to end. Elias's company wasn't just about profit. It was a testament to second chances. He hired individuals who were struggling, those society had written off. He didn't just give them jobs, he gave them training, mentorship, and a belief in their own potential. His boardroom meetings often started with a moment of reflection, and his business decisions were guided by compassion as much as by capital. Love found him when he was no longer searching for it. Sarah was a woman whose laughter was like music, and whose heart saw the restored man, not the broken one he had been. Together, they built a home filled not with expensive things, but with warmth, joy, and a pitter-patter of children's feet. His family became his greatest treasure, a living symbol of God's grace. The Next Chapter Foundation became a sanctuary for the lost. It wasn't just a place for a meal or a bed. It was a place where people could rewrite their stories. Elias would often sit with them, not as a wealthy benefactor, but as a fellow traveler. He shared his own story of despair and redemption, his words a lifeline to those drowning in hopelessness. The years etched themselves onto Elias's face, but they did not dim the light in his eyes. He became a beloved figure in the city, a man known not for his fortune, but for his boundless generosity and wisdom. He taught his children and grandchildren that true wealth was measured by the love you give away, a lesson he lived every single day. His body grew frail, but his spirit remained strong. From the porch of the home he had built with Sarah, he watched the sunsets paint the sky, each one a masterpiece. He saw God's hand in everything, in his wife's loving gaze, in his grandchildren's laughter, in the very air he breathed. He had lived a full life, a beautiful life, a life he had almost thrown away. He was ready. One quiet evening, surrounded by his family, Elias closed his eyes for the last time. There was no struggle, no fear. It was a gentle release, like a deep and final exhale. The love in the room was a palpable force, a testament to the life he had lived. His chapter on earth was finished, written in full, and it was a masterpiece. He opened his eyes, not to darkness, but to an infinite expanse of soft, warm light. It was familiar, a homecoming. A figure stood before him, radiating not blinding majesty, but an immense, gentle presence. It was God, and he was smiling. "Welcome home, my son," God said, his voice a symphony of love. "You wrote a beautiful story." God opened his arms, and Elias walked into the embrace. It was the same embrace that had saved him, but this time, there were no tears of sorrow, only tears of infinite joy. His story was complete. He was home.